This week, a group of Kansas City residents filed paperwork with the city clerk's office in Kansas City to start a formal challenge to the planning for a new terminal at KCI Airport. The group of 5 petitioners is seeking a referendum on what they say is an unnecessary and wasteful $1.2 billion expenditure. The city insists, though, the effort is totally invalid as the city has not decided to move forward with a new terminal yet and only voted on a resolution to continue the planning process. So has the petition effort now been withdrawn?
Yes, because you can't have a referendum on a resolution under the charter, so there's a technical reason why you can't proceed with this effort, Nick. But more broadly speaking, it almost certainly won't be required going forward because the citizens of Kansas City are going to get a vote on this one way or another. Lynn Horsley and I are working on a story for Sunday's newspaper, a long story about the politics of all the discussions out at KCI. And I think because of the way it's going to be financed, the citizens of Kansas City will have to vote. And that could touch off one of the more intense campaigns we've seen in this community on a ballot measure in many, many, many years. Primarily because, and the petition drive that didn't work shows us this, there is a huge emotional attachment currently to the airport that will make this issue unlike others that have come before voters in recent years.
So you might want to get out of bed a little earlier on Sunday morning to make sure you're securing your copy of the Kansas City Star on Sunday.
Available at the finer retail
absolutely, so you can get a hold of that copy. Stacey Cameron, though, but what does this, though, tell us that that we do have citizen petitioners so early in this process wanting to even do this?
Right, and that should give our city leaders pause in going forward, because if you start to see that type of organized opposition that early regarding a plan that could cost taxpayers upwards of $1 billion, you may want to draw back because, as Dave said, eventually some aspect of this is going to get in the hands of the voter. And if it is not popular, you got to think it's sunk before this thing even tries to float.
Now, the backers of the project will say, well, hell, hold on. I mean, there's going to be a lot of chance for citizen input. But the petitioners in this effort say, by the time that happens, it's so far in the process, you can barely do anything. You can only tinker around with the edges of these types of projects. Steve?
Well, I think there will be a chance for citizens to have some comment here, but the city has itself a real problem here, Nick. There are 3 horseshoes up at KCI. Only 1.5 of them are being used right now. The heads of the airport talk about this exorbitant expense to try to keep up the security structure at the horseshoe and a half that's being used now. And to hear Mayor Sly James tell it, the change is inevitable. He talks about the fact that people were attached to Wheeler Downtown Airport back in the day. Look how much more convenient that was, and yet at one point in time the city had to make a change to go to a different airport.
Eric.
But Kansas City isn't a hub of connecting to overseas flights or things. It's a layover, crossover area. A lot of people are calling into the newspaper saying, well, if we need something changed, just tear down the 2 that you don't want and leave them up, leave the 1 up. Because we just spent, what, $250 million renovating the terminals several years ago. So why put some more money into those terminals?
There's been some polling on this, Nick, and there is overwhelming resistance today. Now, that could change over the next couple of years. But remember, most people never use the airport. They don't really care. They're not paying that much attention. The tax will only be for the people who do use the airport, however that mechanism works. The singular problem for city officials who want this is to convince the people who never use the airport that they should vote for it. And the stumbling block there is people who don't use the airport want to know why you need to spend $1.2 billion when that money might be better spent in other ways.
But it's not going to be their money. Though. It's not coming out of their pocketbooks.
And you understand that, and all the people around this table understand that. But as a political matter, to convince people who don't pay that much attention to the airport that you, in essence, have $1 billion here for, and you don't have it for other things, that's a tough hurdle to get over.
Quickly, I think what people should pay real close attention to, this is so unpopular that the aviation department is hiring a private public relations firm to start to spin this. Now, the city and the water department spent more than $350,000 on public relations. I wonder how much the aviation department will spend, and that will be city taxpayer dollars. And I think that should be one of the disturbing aspects going forward.